And William Ruto's message that raised the hopes and aspiration the hustler saw. They saw him clinch the presidency. 1 year after the Hustler Fund was started, President is still hopeful it will solve their problems. You have this story on page 2 and 3 of the Standard today. Remember, yesterday they were marking 1 year since now the installation of Hustler Fund, and you can see how it went down. The president can be seen here during the first anniversary celebration of the Hustler Fund in Nairobi. Yesterday, the president said the government will reward borrowers with 50% of their savings. And still on the front page of the Standard today, 2 women resolved to live positively, get children, fight stigma. And remember, the world is marking World AIDS Day today. 2 mothers did not let HIV get in their way of motherhood and happiness. You can read all about their story. All the stories here on page 6 and 7 of the Standard today. More parents moved to court over KCPE. Parents dissatisfied with their children's exam results are trooping to court, asking for results to be checked afresh amid claims NEC dropped the ball. And of course, we have the legislators also calling for the heads to roll at NEC. That is where it is right now. And pay boon for teachers as they get extra packs. You have the story on page 12. Big win for Sarai. They'll run Mumias. That is on page 23. And Kissinger. Divisive in death as life. Henry Kissinger passed on yesterday at the age of 100. A stalwart, a bulwark of a diplomat. You can read all about him on page 33 of the Standard this morning. Remember also for the young and the young at heart. We have the Pulse magazine, class of 23. You can also just have a review of how it went down this year and who made it for the class of 23. That is all tucked away inside the Standard this morning. Let's see what the Daily Nation is holding for us, I should say. Referendum. Ruto allies tell off Raila. This is the splash this morning. There's a dilemma here whether or not to call a plebiscite to implement some of the proposals made by the National Dialogue Committee in their report appears to be the next battleground for the president and Azimio leader Raila Odinga. The outcome of such a vote in the president's first term could determine the winner of 2027 contest, and both camps are aware of this. You have the story on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation this morning. Permanent jobs beckon for 46,000 intern tutors. The 46,000 intern teachers who are recruited this year will have their contract extended in January for 1 more year before they are made permanent and pensionable employees in 2025. Teachers Service Commission Chief Executive Nancy Macharia told the Senate Committee on Education yesterday. You can follow the story on the back page of the Daily Nation this morning. And also Hustler Fund turns one with goodies for borrowers. The President William Ruto can be seen engaging businesswomen or a businesswoman at her stand during the celebrations. You can follow the story inside the Daily Nation. Murkomen orders agency to crack down on illegal PSVs. Also, MPs Simon Machogu demands NEC changes over KCPE irregularities. MPs have summoned Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu to explain the numerous complaints and irregularities that were reported in the 2023 KCPE examinations. You can follow the story on the back page of the Daily Nation. And World AIDS Day, giving PrEP to pregnant women curbs infections by HIV. This is what a new study is showing, and you can read all about it on page 14 of the Daily Nation this morning. This is how it looks. Let's see what the star is holding for us. Why Ruto's allies reject Raila's calls for referendum. Azimio chief calls for vote. President disapproves use of taxpayers' billions. And there is a related picture here. 1-to-1 ODM leader Raila Odinga and Wiper boss Kalonzo Musyoka can be seen during the burial of Embakasi South MP Julius Mawathe's mother, Mama Phyllis Mawathe, in Mwala, Machakos County on Thursday. On the sidebar, Nobel Peace Prize laureate takes final bow. That is growing up as a young boy, Professor Ezekiel Okemwa had a unique and rare passion among his peers, or his peers fishing. While his friends ventured into football or athletics during their free time, Okemwa walked down into Riasuta River, Etago sub-county in Kisii County. Right, you can read all about him on page 11, where he's being eulogized. And senators raise red flag on shortage of TB. You have a story on page 8 of The Star. Also affordable credit as Fund, 39.5 billion shillings loaned out in 1 year. You know the details by now. And also remember, you have CSR pull-out burgers and cans in honey for you every Friday. Wrath of El Nino and struggle for survival in Kenya's north. This is what is on the front page of The Star today. Also, Ruto in a tight corner. This is all about the economy. President in a big dilemma amidst increasing pressure from hustlers, IMF and courts. All that tucked away inside the CSR Pull-Out magazine. Let's see what the People Daily is holding for us. You know about now the edible oil saga. Now there's a new development. It's gone missing. 9.3 billion shillings edible oil now goes missing. There's a mystery here. Senate team denied access to warehouses, with sources revealing that health officials had declared consignment under investigations and fit for human consumption. And remember, this was supposed to go to the public, which was being imported. Now it's gone missing completely. This is what is on the front page of the People Daily. Why were they denied access to actually vet or maybe to verify this particular consignment that was domiciled in the warehouses there? And the last time we checked, we had the government officials looking for buyers to actually get these edible oils that were being held there. Metrics, thousands and thousands of metric tons of edible oil that is not conducive for human consumption, yet they were brought here into the country. This is a matter under investigation. You can read all about it on page 4. Why health insurance could deny you marriage certificate. Why health insurance could deny you marriage certificate, right? Just make sure you have your ducks in a row as far as that is concerned, but you can read all about the details there if you have not been streamlining yourself with the new act. Right, this is the People Daily today. Gangs emerge to control matatu industry. We can see the resurgence there of gangs and their cartel sort of behavior within the matatu sector. That is the People Daily. Taifa Leo, mabilioni kusafisha hewa Kenya. Saudi ya mwaga mabilioni ya pesa kufadhili mipango mikubwa ya kuondoa kamboni katika bara Afrika. And this is the story that you want to follow on page 2 of Taifa Leo. Wabunge wakosoa maafisa. Wabunge Turkana wataka serikali kuajiri polisi wa akiba kutatua zogo la mipaka. Koti ya kataa kufufua kesi ya Mumias. And you can read all about it on page 4 of Taifa Leo today. Muziki unaobamba wa Kenya. All that is tucked away inside Taifa Leo. How Galfarm baited Kenya into extended G2G fuel deal. ADNOC digs in for 1 more year to review premiums, and demands by UAE farm revealed in COP28 reports. You can read all about it on page 2 of the Business Daily this morning. Also, private firms to run 5 power transmission lines. At least 5 electricity transmission lines will soon be run by private investors as the government advances with its plan to operate part of a grid system and a public-private partnership framework. And subsidiaries lift bank forex income to 57 billion shillings. Kenya's tier 1 banks recorded 4.9 billion shillings jump in forex trading income to 57.8 billion shillings in the 9 months to September, helped by growth in revenue from those funding regional trade deals. That story continues on page 13 of the Business Daily this morning. And informal workers to access state-backed mortgages and the new plan. Households in the informal sector could soon access home loans from banks and SACCOs under a plan aimed at de-risking lending to workers with irregular income. You have a story on page 2 of the Business Daily this morning. Let's cross over to Uganda, where 70 teens catch HIV every day. This is according to a new survey here as we're marking the World AIDS Day. There's an analysis by Uganda AIDS Commission, which is giving these statistics showing that more than 50,000 new HIV infections in the last 2 years have been among young people aged 15 to 24 years, triggering a crisis for the country's future. And this is the same that we had from a conversation here also in the country, that the latest survey shows that 24 years and below, they're now getting infected by HIV/AIDS. And what does it portend for our future? Because we have the majority of a bank, when we talk about the youthful or the youth dividend, this is where it really falls. And that story continues on page 4 and 5. It seems it's not just a Kenyan problem, but an East African one as well. We don't know the statistics from Tanzania to relate, but that's a niggling worry. Uganda's national cricket team, Cricket Cranes, celebrates making the Cricket World Cup next year for the first time after qualifying yesterday for the T20 tournament to be hosted by the West Indies and the US. Uganda beats Rwanda to secure second place in the African regional qualifying event. Also, Muslim properties, over 20 UMSS members blocked from meeting. Ugandan Scoops Award for caring for children with autism. That is a story to want to read on page 2 of the Daily Monitor. Remember, also you have the scoop. Get all the latest scoop as well as far as the entertainment is concerned. In Tanzania, there's speculation as Chongolo resigns from CCM hot seat. The surprise resignation of CCM Secretary General Daniel Chongolo after holding the position for 2 years has set tongues wagging, with some political commentators linking his exit with the 2025 general election. You have the story on page 2 of The Citizen this morning. AU moves to recover assets stolen from Africa. Funding key to ending AIDS by 2030, says UN. And why trade in chemicals has surged since 2020. You can read all about it on page 3 of the latest in The Citizen in Tanzania. Also, Faraja, start building tech grows with you. All that tucked away in today's publication. Let's see what is happening in Rwanda this morning. 6 key highlights in central bank reports. In 2023, the Rwandan franc depreciated significantly by 8.76 against the US dollar. And you have a story on page 3 of the New Times this morning. HIV/AIDS. Rwanda presses for reduced foreign aid. And also Kenya has been urged not to finance its own interventions of HIV. If you know about the latest news regarding funding, especially from Global Fund. Minister of Health, Dr. Sabine Nsanzimana, poses for a photo with individuals and representatives of the organizations who were acknowledged for their vital contribution to the fight against AIDS during the World AIDS Day event in Kigali on Thursday. During his address, Nsanzimana encouraged young individuals to undergo testing and start treatment, emphasizing that the illness is still prevalent. You have a story on page 2 of the New Times in Rwanda. Also, Belgium Africa Museum seeks to redress historical injustices is another story on the sidebar there. And frontliners in the fight against gender-based violence. This story is on page 8. Of course, this is 16 days of activism against or gender-based violence. You can read all about it inside the New Times. The East African this week has been holding this splash, the new kid on the block. Somalia has been admitted to EAC, but the real journey begins now as it seeks to put its house in order and domesticate crucial protocols for trade. And we can see President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud being welcomed here by Tanzania's Samia Suluhu Hassan. Welcome home. That story on page 4 and 6, and also page 14 and 17 of the East African. On the sidebar, it's official. EAC or East African troops will exit Congo soon. Leaders have agreed to Kinshasa's demand to withdraw the regional peacekeepers who have generally been unwanted. And that story is on page 2. DevKey takes over Kigali cement farm. This is Simerwa, a listed company, is preparing to delist from their bows to allow the new investor to restructure operations. You have a story on page 42 of East African this week. And let's see what we have on China Daily. President Xi accelerate Yangtze Delta integration. This is what the president is calling off for. He's calling for region to take lead in higher level reform and opening up. Also, Kissinger remembered by pivotal role remember four pivotal role, I should say. Former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, who helped to change the course of history by playing a pivotal role in normalizing United States-China relations, passed away at his home in the U.S. state of Connecticut on Wednesday at age 100. President Xi Jinping sent a message of condolence to U.S. President Joe Biden on Thursday over the death of Kissinger. You can read the rest of the details there inside the China Daily. You can see a picture of the former diplomat there, former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, being greeted by students and faculty of Nanjing University. This is June the 23rd, 2007, during the 20th anniversary celebrations of Johns Hopkins University, Nanjing University Center for Chinese and American Studies in Nanjing, Jiangsu province. All that tucked away inside the China Daily. Let me show you what we have. There's the latest copy of The Economist. It expires today, and it's all about some progress must try Harper. And you can see climate report, investment, renewables, making commitments, keeping to commitments, adaptation, climate finance incomplete, amongst others. This is the latest copy of The Economist. Open artificial intelligence lessons from a revolution. Also, you have the UAE's ambitious ascent inside Hamas finances, why isolationists should aid Ukraine. That is The Economist. Time magazine. This is the climate edition, the Time 100 Climate. It calls the 100 most influential leaders driving business to real climate change. And this is where also President Ruto was listed as among the leaders who are most influential in driving business to real climate action. And the Newsweek as well is focusing on the artificial intelligence and cancer. Can AI beat cancer? That is the abiding question. And it says here that with new powerful tools, scientists are winning battles against this complex disease. And you can read all about the latest revelations inside the Newsweek this morning. And the week ready to rumble while Republicans lawmakers are trading jabs and making threats. That is what has been also on the front page of the week. All you need to know about everything that matters, you can grab a copy of that as well. Musk's hateful truth. That is another story you can read. And kind of radical libertarian fix Argentina. Of course, all about the Argentina elections. And the First Lady's life of advocacy obituary there. That is Rosalynn Carter, the wife of the former president of the U.S. as well, Jimmy Carter, who passed on. You can read all about it on page 35 of the week as well. All right, that is what we have from the publications this morning, fresh off the press today, and I'll be running you by the editorial cartoons as well. But let me just introduce the faces that we have this morning that I've created a FaceTime with today. Up and early, we had Professor Gitile Naituli, right, fresh from Kajiado, and they can tell us how also the goats and the sheep are faring with the floods as well in Kajiado this morning. We have also with us Dr. Martin Olo, right, who is an advocate also, the Dean of School of Law at Daystar University. We have with us as well Kipruto Arab Kirwa, who is a governance and policy analyst as well. And we do have with us Professor Fred Ogola, who is an economist. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today. Right, let's hear from Gitile Naituli. Just tell us how Kajiado is.
Kajiado is very good.
You've built trenches. Have you gotten some stipend from the county?
The government did well. If you look at the finger rounds, you know whatever it is the government got from the national government, the zone has done very well there. We don't have a lot of damages because the idea was to expand the drainages and to make the interior roads motorable. And I think that the government has done very well.
It's done very well. Another question that has been raised is that we have, money that has been given for climate change. People are asking all these monies that we had, the Africa Union Summit or the Climate Summit, where is the money going? How then do we account for this money? Is this now the mitigations that we need from those money when it comes to climate change, or what are we waiting for? Kipruto Arab Kirwa?
Well, thank you, Deban, for this opportunity. The major challenge with some of these so-called pledges most of them, they don't get to the kitty where it's required. I say so because while working for IGAD as a special envoy to Somalia, every meeting we used to have a lot of pledges, and the next meeting those pledges would not have been honored, and therefore the recipient would not have gotten the money. So I do hope that the climate change money will get to the kitty, and it will also be used for the right purposes. My worry today is that the trees the president and the team claimed to have planted a few days ago, most likely 80% of them are now dead. Because what happens is that planting trees and growing them are two different terms in terms of climate mitigation measures. Because what we need to do is to inculcate in our people the feeling that planting a tree is a moment of change, and therefore you take care of that tree until it goes beyond the normal position that is likely to be eaten away by some animals, especially goats in Kajiado and other parts of the country. So in Trans Nzoia, I'm happy, I came from Trans Nzoia yesterday, that this challenge of El Nino is not as much as the rest of the country, which goes in tandem with what the experts said, that it is going to be the epicenter of this El Nino in Kenya will be areas that have been experiencing a bit of drought. While politicians were disputing it, I think we need to spend more time respecting experts so that we're able to use that information for purposes of addressing the challenges of our nation.
Right, thank you. Professor Fred Ogola, good morning, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yes.
Yeah.
You, the Hustler Fund, were you featured yesterday as the top borrower of the Hustler Fund?
By the way,
on a lighter note, of course.
By the way, I say that my kinsmen are suffering a lot, because if you look at the borrowing of Hustler Fund, the most majority is from Western Kenya. Because remember, even the banking sector, Western Kenya are the highest uptake in borrowing. But if you go to Mount Kenya, they are the ones who deposit more. So we are more of a deficit market. And actually they borrowed more. Even Fuliza sits more in Western Kenya if you go to Kisii, Luo Nyanza, Luhya. But this is just because there is no income generating companies. If you look at all the sugar belt that died there, if you look at no companies, because if you look at the whole of Western Kenya, which is the largest company that you can actually point your finger at? Mostly they are political parties, because in Western Kenya, for example, in Luo Nyanza, the largest company is ODM. But if you go to Mount Kenya, you find we have Cooperative Bank. Those are companies coming from those regions. Of course, you can tell me they are spreading there, but nevertheless, you can find that the job is very skewed, if you like. So because of lack of income, what are you doing? The Hustler Fund was used as a stopgap measure of picking some money and using them for consumption. So I think that we are the biggest beneficiary of Hustler Fund in terms of borrowing, but that does mean that we are more in debt when the president took over than now. And if you are saying you are going to reward the people who borrowed, by giving you more loan, is someone helping you? I don't think. We need to transform Hustler Fund.
Should you be rewarded there?
No. For me, I believe that the Hustler Fund was supposed to be more of an income program. For example, would you be able to put money in some organization that can actually be able to create more jobs so that people can get more income? If I was the president, I would have never given a handout, because as an economist, do you prefer to put money on the individual's pockets, or you put money on something that can create money for a community or a society? So I was thinking that's the other way around, because a handout economy, they can't help. We believe more on, if you are able to create job, you select some SMEs that needed to grow and you expand them, they are more likely to create jobs for people so that the people can actually be able to earn money for themselves. But if you put money in somebody's pocket who cannot even start a business, look, to have an ID, to go and get the police abstract, all the costs that are involved on just to qualify for Hustler Fund. When you receive that money, the benefits are actually zero. That's why you have not seen more businesses growing at the bottom of the pyramid, because that was supposed to happen. At the bottom of the pyramid, you're supposed to have more business coming up, pay more taxes. As long as that's not happening, then Hustler Fund has not achieved its intended goal. But last but not least, Linda Jamii went to court against Hustler Fund. There's no board as we speak. There's no management to speak. So all these reports we are getting them, are they coming from Twitter? What's the source of these reports? You can tell me on a digital platform, but that's where corporate governance is called upon to check whether this thing is true or not.
All right, so, but we have an acting CEO.
You know, you cannot be a CEO without a board.
She doesn't have,
you are in government. There's no way someone can be a CEO. Who has appointed you?
Right. Let's hear from Dr. Martin Olo.
About the Hustler Fund. I thought that...
Just to get introductory remarks for you, and it could be the Hustler Fund. Also, you can tell us if you knew of Professor Ezekiel Okwemwa, and the obituary there, I can see of him.
Yeah.
He's a Nobel laureate as well. You as the fraternity from the academia, you can pay you commiserations as well and condolences.
Well, I've just seen that notification, but first of all, let me thank you for having me this morning and to listen to this gentleman in the morning. The many things that we talk about, or sometimes we don't talk about, when somebody's dead, and then you hear all sorts of accolades being, bandied because they are gone. Unfortunately, when they are alive, there is very little recognition that they are given, and therefore we get to know less and less of them. But such is life. Let his soul rest in peace. But yes, we look forward to many other peacemakers coming out of the academia. I'm looking at Professor Naituli here, and despite the fact that he has been around the national cohesion and other things, I doubt that we can nominate him for peace, but whatever the I'm just beginning to think
I was the elder of the burning sphere for sorting out a lot of problems when I was a commissioner.
Okay.
But let's see why he's let's see why he can qualify.
Let us know
what he said. What are the reasons? Why do you say so?
We might fit him for many other things, but not maybe for contributing to peace and so on. Because, as he says, he's been head of burning spear, so the burning spear. That must be a burning. But that said, it's been a great week for us. I think as Kenyans, we keep on getting wiser and, getting better, if you ask me. Because, you see, being better doesn't mean that everything is good. But being knowledgeable and just knowing, being conscious and just being knowledgeable is something that we welcome. Indeed. So when Professor here says that people in Western, the only manufacturing they have is political parties, that may not be exactly so, because economy is not necessarily driven only by manufacturing industries and so on. But the spirit, the enterprise spirit, and just the ability of people to add one-to-one to create a livelihood is critical. One of the things that the Hustler Fund was actually aimed at was to see how Mama Mboga, or those people who are on a day-to-day need of resources or some money, can actually borrow, go ahead and buy up something in the wholesale market and sell on the retail, and then refund or repay in the evening, because Mama Mboga generally will buy at 10 bob and will sell at 20 bob, and they will be able to pay that loan. As to whether that has happened and that has enabled that kind of availability of monies is another thing, because maybe what he's saying is that people are borrowing for consumption and not necessarily for economic activities. And if the need is consumption, then let's also look at what else we need to do as a country to make sure that we give people some basic cushions, a basic platform for them to begin their lives.
Right. Okay, let me just turn the crack now. I'll be remiss if we don't really talk about, just briefly, about the world's AIDS Day today. And we can see very telling statistics there about our young people below the age of 24. They are hugely affected and being infected by HIV or AIDS for that matter. So I wanted just to ask in terms of behavioral changes, what should be the way forward? Because I thought when in an event and in an epoch of time where we have so much information and access to information, we should be all the wiser. And even for the parents, they should be the wise on how to control and how to inform the young people. Are they not really seeing the effects of HIV, or maybe also the media is not really telling so much more about the effects of HIV and how it adversely affects people? You know, previously we could see telling pictures on how HIV really can actually attack someone's immune and body, and that was sending some very sobering images and messages that will maybe try and also stimulate some behavioral change. But when you're talking about 24 to 15 years who are sexually active and they don't really care a fig about their health, as you can see from Glovo as well, I think the biggest purchase this year that was coming through that particular app was condoms and what else?
Alcohol.
And alcohol.
Yeah.
Condom and alcohol. Should we be worried? This is also what I can see in Uganda as well. 70 teens catch HIV. 70 teens every day. 70 is a huge number. We're talking about the East African community. Professor Gitile.
You know, I don't think we should be worried, because we have to understand that
we shouldn't be worried. 70.
We shouldn't be worried. The information out there is huge, and what we need to understand is you take any research done on HIV and other things with a pinch of salt, because it's an industry for generating money. So for the people in that industry to continue getting money, they need to exaggerate the figures. You see, when HIV was really
but we need to find out, even when this, about the kosher and the efficacy of this particular report. We can try and politicize it, but we have something that is within us.
I agree. I don't disagree with you, but I'm just saying that when it was really there, we saw it every day. I mean, but now if I tell you to point in a group of all these people you are working with here, you may probably... So what I'm saying is lower. It's not really the 70% like in Uganda or maybe in Kenya. That is 70% in Kenya, right? That's in the that's a daily monitor. I'm saying, given the information is out there, people know how to protect themselves. Unfortunately, of course, is maybe the young people, like you are saying, maybe they haven't internalized the risk of having to live with a disability, because that's what it really is. Because I guess it's not killing people as it used to.
So the issue is not really about the information being out there. The issue is consumption of information, understanding of information. Because even if you have the information and the behavioral changes is not, yes, it doesn't make any sense.
I agree with you.
We should be worried.
I agree with you. But I mean, in the
but is that what you'll be telling students? You know, in university.
University.
That you should not be. You know, we should be telling them we shouldn't be worried. This is. Before, if I hear that from you, I get worried.
What I'm doing is that's a political statement I'm putting out there, because I know how we operate. Okay, I mean, everything about us is PR. We have just been talking about the Asula Fund here. If someone wanted the Asula Fund to work, they know what they should have done. They should have placed that money with a bank, which lent to micro enterprises. The idea is transforming a micro enterprise to a small scale enterprise and to a medium. But that's not what we did, because we need the public relations. So what I'm saying, the point I'm making here, is that the statistics, I'm not persuaded that they reflect the reality actually on the ground. I think the uptake of information on HIV has been good. I think the people have information, and I think the people are protecting themselves better than is being indicated. Now, when do I get that casual look at the people you work with, at where you are, and then comparing to when this matter was really an epidemic, then you realize that the people are actually taking care of themselves, because the deaths and the people the sick.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah. But we have to also be alive to the fact that, yes, the medication has really helped. You can maintain yourself and you can be looking very healthy because there is success to medication.
You really look healthy when you are sick, you are sick.
No, but you see, what Professor is failing to do
yes.
is failing to recognize where the problem is, because at the lower level, the teenage between 12 and 24, there are numbers, but there is also this active reproductive sexual activities.
Indeed.
And this is also coming against the protective awareness that has already been in place. So some of them are actually having unsafe sex and so on. So basically what you're saying is that we do have a problem. There is early sexual activities among our youth, but also unsafe sex, and that is worrying. And like in the past, for example, when Uganda is actually worried, remember Uganda was the first to be hit, and it was one of the early countries to really put in place mitigation measures. And for a long time, the level of awareness in Uganda was very high, and perhaps the infection rates were low. For Uganda to begin to pick up means that there is something that is falling. Even equally, in our case, something is falling. Should we be worried? Yes, absolutely. On a World AIDS Day like this, we should be sending a message that AIDS is still a killer, AIDS is still preventable, and that you can do something about it, especially for the younger people. They can they can abstain, wait for the right time, and also get into proper relationships, not just casual relationships.
Okay, Professor Abkirwa, you think we in any way the access to this medicine, because we should be worried in the first place that now we've been heavily relying on the foreign aid to actually get this medication, but we've been now warned by the donors that you can actually maintain yourself. You don't need us, so prepare to be on your own. Don't come with a pail in hand anymore. For the longest time, it's always been reliant on the whole global fund. And even the accountability of it has been questionable, though you saw what really happened. Could that also have informed the pullout of the donors? Briefly.
Yeah, what this issue informs us is that the administration of the day needs to be persistent in terms of information dissemination. It is important because, as you know, AIDS doesn't kill. It is the fact that your immunity goes down, and there are many other opportunistic diseases that will ravage you and destroy you. And therefore, it worries me when you are talking about 15 to 24. This is the age that we expect to be useful to the nation, whether it's Uganda or Kenya or any country in the world for that matter. Therefore, I feel we still need to inform people, because information consumption is a factor of awareness, and therefore when you relegate to the backwaters, and we are talking now about El Nino, about the Hustler Fund, and we are not talking about the issue of AIDS as a real killer to many people, it is something that should be worrying us. And therefore, I strongly believe that unlike my good friend Professor Naituli, we still need to talk about it. We still need to tell the young people that there is a challenge here in our society. While you need to engage in your various activities, you still need to be cautious. Abstaining may be an option, but also still need to use protection should you be able to engage in that kind of enterprise, or if it is an enterprise at all. So I still believe we need really to spend more time talking about it, because you see the only problem in Kenya, we are at times very cynical. At times we say, okay, how many people are killed by AIDS? How many people die of cancer? How many people die of malaria? And we use those road accidents, and we use those statistics to demean the position that AIDS is a killer, and it comes with finality. And therefore, even if you are to be alive, like some people who have been alive for the last 30 years.
You should tell that to Professor. You should just
you'll not be as productive as the case should have been. And we need to engage every human soul in productive activities.
Maybe there is also the view of fatigue with all the statistics and number that really comes at the end of the day, that when now you're talking about the reality of it, it is not having that particular shock value that it should in the first place. When we talk about politicization of it, should we also that cloud over the reality of it, that yes, there has been corruption with this fund, but the reality that young people are getting affected by it as well is here with us. And when we have such revelations, I think as a government and a country, we should take it seriously, because we're talking about the future of our children. And it's not just a threat to my children, it's a threat to your children. We don't know where they will meet. We don't know which university they will meet. I mean, what does it really portend? So everyone should be worried. Just as Martin Luther King said, injustice anywhere is a threat of justice everywhere. Yeah, indeed. Professor.
Yeah, first of all, I want to tell my brother, Professor Naitwili, that sometimes the Bible can guide you, because the Bible even says that tell them to know and even repeat to them, even if they know. So, and Socrates says knowledge is virtue, and virtue is knowledge, means that the assumption is that the fact that you know, you should actually behave otherwise. But how many people know the 10 commandments of God and they still break them? So it's amazing that people can know and then they don't use their knowledge. And it starts by people saying that, no, it won't happen to me. We talk about the issue of teen pregnancies. Everybody knows that people can get pregnant before they finish high school, and they say, everyone starts by saying, I don't think it will happen for me. Then you say, if it happens to me, it won't end up this way. Even thieves being arrested, he starts by saying, I don't think I can be arrested. And if I'm arrested, it won't be as bad as so and so. So there must some behavioral things that actually needs to be done to change the narrative. But for me, what hurts me are the following statistics. There's a statistics I was reading somewhere. It found out that 72% of our children get exposed to sex at primary school. So that's a concern to me. The second thing, which is most hurting, is the education system we have in Kenya will encourage that figure to go up. And this is my main reason. Have you seen that now kids are breaking away for how many weeks? Are they 8 weeks? Now, it is, while this is good in Karen, in Lavington, in this upmarket, because you can find your child to have a tutor to come. If you go to slums where I grew up, Sambwe, I was in Magongo, I grew up in Kibera. Last week I was in Mombasa. There was a case where a neighbor raped a child who is in class 6 in Bamburi. So, because these people in these informal settlements don't know what to do with 8 weeks. This prolonged break that is long for nothing, the government has to know, what are these kids doing? Because the parents in this formal sector go out looking for food. They are really trying to fend for family. The economy is harsh on them. And the kids cannot afford to have a tutor to spend time with kids. What are they doing? What are they watching at home? What are the neighbors taking advantage of? And so this child was raped, this girl was raped by a neighbor who came to their house when the parents were out looking for food. So according to me, let us not just come up with some policies because you are a CS sitting in Karen and saying, let us close schools very early. So I'm sure, what are they occupying their time with? How can we use the education system to lower this number? Because if you look, you go to a place like Homa Bay, you find that in Homa Bay, there are too many NGOs in Homa Bay than any other county in Kenya because of HIV. So it's being used as Naitwili, that I agree with you, that even you heard about that malaria is the highest killer in Africa, isn't it? Let me ask you, Deval, do you know any your neighbor or your brother or sister or just a close relative whom you buried and it was known that they died of malaria? And for me, I've been in this country for long. I do not know anyone where I attended a funeral that died of malaria. Having said that, do you know anyone who died of cardiovascular disease that you said this one was heart attack, this was pressure? You can put your fingers. So people are telling us about the figures which are not ours. And according to me, that's why I'm working on the data or health, building an African data repository to be able to tell our story, because our story is being told from outside. Just like you said that until the hunted tells the story of the hunting, every story will be told from the point of the hunter. So our hunters, our World Bank, IMF, they tell us how our economy will grow. They tell us what our HIV level. George Hopkins University is the one who comes with the data, tells you about how COVID will affect Africa. Africa needs to start collecting its own data and telling their own story. Africans have enough scholars. In this bench, are you seeing any scarcity of qualified people? Why are we consuming data of someone sitting in New York telling you about how HIV is affecting you and your percentages? We need to start telling our story. And the data about Africa is being told to Africa for a way to colonize us using data. Okay. And I think for me, this is derailing the whole conversation.
But you're the same professor will say that now the government is not even funding you to do research. You've been crying, oh, we don't have, our research kitty is not giving it sufficient funds.
But there's no research fund in Kenya. Tell me which university
okay, let's hear from when we sit here and eminent professors begin to tell us that data is cooked, data is manipulated, and they are in the academia and they are supposed to be giving us data, that is shirking responsibility. What we should say is this: there is some information out there, we may not agree with it, but what is the alternative information we're having? When Professor is saying that schools should not close for so long, there is something he is not saying. And teachers also supposed to take a rest. Should the teachers be with the students throughout? And teachers not also, and parents also not supposed to be. Are they not supposed to be taking care of their children? Are we not supposed to be having a responsibility as citizens? So that we should not be saying children should be in school for them to be safe, but they still come back home. So whether there's evening, whether there is scholars,
so the issue is not with the school calendar. The issue is with the parental role.
Yes,
right.
And also
you should have planned to know what you will be, of course, occupying your children with during that particular 8 weeks break that they've been given.
And that we should take responsibility for our lack of values or our breakdown in values, because then that is the problem. So whether we keep students in school, children in school, as long as vampires still exist, if they come back home, they will be. So we should deal with the issue.
But I always know you should raise a cross to the vampire. So what crosses are we raising to these vampires as well, so that to dissuade the vampires?
So that's why we need to come back and say, I wish that when he's saying Linda Jamii has a strategy, maybe we should say. So when the professor speaks, we should be able to agree.
But we should not be slighting off what professor is raising, because it's very critical. And when it comes to research as well, and you also from the academia.
I agree.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that we can't just blame it.
Of what
but actually have data
have we ever seen any seminal research that we can actually, as a country, be talking about in relation to HIV that has been done in any university in this country?
On HIV, we do have
so many things that we are talking about.
We do have data. On HIV, we do have data.
Latest.
At least it is there.
Can you whistle one from memory?
Can you whistle one from memory? That we are discussing is Western data. The one we are discussing. Yes. So the professor is right. The one we are discussing is Western.
I want to challenge Dr. Martin Olo to tell us the one that we have, even from the National AIDS Control Council, the latest. That you can actually quote and give us statistics.
No, the truth is this, and maybe we should actually take time and look at it. There's data at Cambridge. There's data within the universities on these issues we are talking about, including on children and so on. So maybe what we are now saying here, we are beginning to create unnecessary disaggregation here. When we say this is Western data, what is it Western? The report we have read about Uganda is about teens in Uganda. So what are we talking about?
Yeah, with some Mzungu doing the research and out of the Uganda team.
You see now, that's a bit of bias.
What Professor is telling you is your funding also not being influenced by some of his funders at the end of the day?
Is that a reality?
Because you were seeing it from the hunter's eyes, as he says.
But is that a reality?
It's a reality, is it? So is it being influenced in any way? How then do we trust the questioners?
The reality is that we are in a catch-22, because we are having, as they say, we are having pharmaceuticals that have an agenda to drive and have money to put on it and have research that goes with it. But we're also having ourselves as consumers we are not creating. For example, we have the National Research Fund, NRF.
Yes.
Where we've said that at least some 2% of our budget ought to go there in terms of research. Do we? We don't. So until we also take research seriously and put money there, we will forever depend on those who have money and those who have an agenda to drive it. That is also
right. Professor, then we take a short break. Professor?
Yes. You know, he said something very important here. It's very hard to understand what has happened with the school calendar. Okay? If you remember, the longest holiday used to be the August holiday. The shortest was actually in December. It used to be 2 weeks.
Yes.
Then 1 month was April. It's hard to understand how the planners in the ministry are running the academic calendar in this country. That's I want to support him fully on that point, because also what you don't want is this. I agree with him that we need to take responsibility as parents, but we also need to understand that we have abdicated our responsibility, that this country is now a nation without a father. Okay, 60% of these homes are single mother homes, because our morals, our culture is broken down. So taking that into account, the ministry should not be this reckless.
Yeah.
Okay, they need to take the society, what we have become into account when they are planning the school calendar. So you can't dismiss what the professor just said, because you need to look at us. And this is at one time the President Ruto complained about it, but I thought he needed to do something about it. Maybe have some laws for the people who want to run away from their children. You know, in Ethiopia, you deposit $50,000 actually. It's $50,000 you deposit if you are a foreigner, and you have a relationship with an Ethiopian woman, okay, to protect them. And then if you are national, when you start the relationship, there's a system of reporting it, even if you are not married.
Right.
Okay. So maybe we need to have that, so that we don't have all the children without the fathers.
Right.
Because it's really destroying the country.
All right, Honorable Kino, briefly from you, then we take a short break. We can see Daily Monitor in Uganda is focusing on this. Looking at our dailies, we are actually focusing on our scandals and looking at the referendum, the reality of referendum, hits and misses about hustler funds. It's a World AIDS Day. If 15 to 24 are getting affected, if 70 children are getting infected every day, I think for me that will be the splash.
Well, I think out of all these issues, I'm still worried about the fact that we do not allow the research to be informed by our own circumstances. I remember the last time I was in the ministry, I would find that even policy formulation, we allow some countries to spearhead that policy, because we expect immediately the policy is organized, then they will be able to fund. And I used to ask my officers, why must we be begging for 20 million shillings at that particular time for the purpose of funneling out a policy? Because the danger in that is that those people who are funding it will be able to skew it in a way that they address their issues instead of addressing our issues. And still, I find the fact that we do not fund research and also spearhead research direction in a way that it answers some of the basic problems that we have as a nation is something that is challenging. It worries me, and it is something that we should be thinking about.
All right.
And finally, well, I was in Ethiopia for 4 years, but I never deposited any money. I don't know. What professor?
I worked there for 2 years.
How did you escape?
Did you
deposit any money?
No, I did
How
not
did
have
you
money.
escape?
How did you escape?
I don't know. I didn't deposit any money.
You didn't deposit any money. All right. Be sure you'll get a call from the Ethiopian embassy today. All right, take a short break. You're watching Mombasa today. When we circle back, of course, we shall be looking at the stories that have made headlines this week, especially on the cost of living, the referendum debate that is on as well, privatization of parastatal questions.